guys, I'm Sahasra Sambamoorthi. I'm the co-founder of Navadhisha and the Drive East Festival in New York. And today I'm talking to you to address the kind of question that I think is popping up to people outside of the US, which is, why is Bharatanatyam relevant to this audience? So when I first got the question, I was like, this is easy, I can answer this. And my answer was 5 seconds long. Every time I kind of came back to it, it was, I like it, so I do it because I like it. And I realized this was not a question I had really ever asked myself. There was never a point where I sat down and was like, is Bharatanatyam relevant? Is the work we do important? Because I knew what I had gotten out of it, which was so much of who I am today. And probably for the audience members, so many of you who are sitting here as well. But I was like, maybe it's just me. So I went and I asked a number of other US-based or US-born artists, why do you do what you do? And everybody had the same answer. They're kind of, I don't know how to answer that question because the answer's super simple for me. I like it. And to parse that out a little bit more, it just means that given our exposure to a number of dance fields, this is the one we chose, whether because that was the one we were trained from an early age, and thus our ability to communicate is more highly refined in this particular channel, or because we've tried multiple art fields and this is the one that stood out to us most. Which finally led me to wonder if we as Americans are not questioning the relevancy of Bharatanatyam in the US, why does the question come up to begin with? Which to me is sort of twofold, which is you have to at least establish that art is relevant. And what makes art relevant? And does Bharatanatyam fall within that parameter? To me, art is relevant due to kind of implicit participation in it. Everyone can agree that art is essential. And whether or not I think someone argues that point is also really important, because the second you start singing a song or going to a concert or, even fashion, buying into the fact that fashion is important, or decorating your home, you have implicitly participated in an act where art was important, was the main function of that moment. So every day people are implicitly participating in the relevancy of art. Now there's also, fine art versus, day-to-day art versus, entertainment, art as entertainment, many variations of this. So if art is essential due to its implicit participation, to me, Bharatanatyam is already relevant in the US because of the amount of time, energy, money, value we put on it. We have made an implicit choice to make Bharatanatyam relevant by participating within it. So I think then the question really transforms itself quite a lot to not why or how or is Bharatanatyam relevant in the US, but rather, can it continue its relevancy beyond its point of origin, beyond someone who has a cultural connection, who knows the language, who has some kind of grab or hold on to it because of where they're from or where they were born or who their parents are. Then I think becomes, why do we even ask this question in the first place? If we're not questioning it here in the US, what causes someone to think about this from a different perspective? Or where does that question even come from? And it made me want to first go, well, do we ask this of other art forms? Do we ask, is ballet relevant outside of Russia? Is Baroque music relevant outside of Europe? Do the blues only sound good from someone who is Black and from New Orleans? Does jazz have any relevancy outside the US? The best, I think, Coldplay, a Christian band who sings about its Christianity quite explicitly in a lot of songs, are they relevant to non-Christian audiences? And I think for everyone, the immediate answer is of course. Of course it's relevant. People are purchasing it, people are buying it, people know about it. So then why do we question whether Indian arts is relevant outside of India if there are so many examples of so many other art forms that are relevant, or we perceive relevancy outside of the point of origination? And while I unfortunately don't have data to back this up, my first intention is to say there's cultural hegemony going on in all of this, which is there's a real power play happening. We as Indians perceive India to be foreign, versus the West to be kind of more exposed, like a global culture, because Western culture perceives it as foreign. So I think there's a little bit of that happening. And then there's also the mix of, we are struggling to find our own audiences. We're struggling to find our own sense of importance. Though people are participating and watching, we want larger numbers of these people to be participating and watching. And we wonder, is that feasible? And to me, that's kind of been one of the beauties of being outside of India, in New York especially. In the suburbs, these communities and pockets of Indian people created more communities that were like what it was back home, where people all wanted the same thing, or everybody goes to Bharatanatyam class and everyone goes to music class. However, being in New York has really forced you to you have to build new audiences. There is not a set number of Indian arts lovers that I just have to find and then, tell them we're doing Bharatanatyam, come. You are competing on a daily basis with the hundreds of other talented artists that are out there. Someone has to choose between going to see the ballet that night, going to see you that night. And the fact of the matter is, even an Indian will not say, I'm gonna go see Bharatanatyam just because I'm Indian. They're gonna say, which company do I like better, and go. So a lot of building audiences for us has been trying as many performances as we can and as many venues as we can, and seeing who can we show this art form to and who's being responsive to it. And the response has been overwhelming, hands down. Some of the baseline things we question as Bharatanatyam artists: is Margam relevant? Is the Jatiswaram relevant? Is the Tilhana relevant? I have been shocked to see that absolutely 100%, there's no way it couldn't be relevant kind of response. One of my favorite examples, and this is this year alone, I can probably count 5 or 6 examples out of the maybe 20 performances we did, where it was an audience that has no connection to Indian culture, has no connection to Indian language, probably has never seen it before, would be hard to find India on a map because they were so young. We went to a school in Brooklyn in the morning, 368-year-olds, really good mix of blacks and Latinos, whites. And all we did was a basic Jatiswaram and Tilana. And I say basic in the sense that I, as an artist or the choreographer, did not perceive either of these items to be some of our best work or some of our most engaging work. We performed these 2 items, and these kids were giving us a standing ovation, solid 2 minutes. They were so excited. I kind of took a step back and I was like, sometimes we think because we're not getting the reaction we want from the current audiences we have, that maybe we're not as relevant as we'd like to think to be, or maybe the work we're doing doesn't have the same effect on audiences as it does on us. And this kind of was the exact opposite. It was all the proof I needed that we are in the right direction. This doesn't happen once. It happens, I would say, 25% of the time that we are in a space. And actually, that's because 25% of the time, we're in completely new spaces where I have no idea. I'm kind of biting my nails. These people have no exposure. They don't know the language. Is the music going to be weird to them? All of that stuff. And those are the ones I find to be the most responsive and the most excited. And not because it's foreign. There's some newness to that. But because something in them was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So living in New York has given me access to see those people regularly, which I think is also part of the reason I don't really question it and I continue it. And what that has further proven to me is that this art form's continued relevancy, again, not about its point of origination or connection, but is about access. We forget that there are 6 billion people in this world, and how many really know about Indian arts and culture? A couple million? Or have been exposed to it? It can't be, it's not half the world. I think we tend to see our own bubble a lot, so we presume there are a lot more people know what the word Bharatanatyam is, because we perform to that bubble a lot. But being in New York has certainly taught me that's not the case, and that the more I give people access, I give them at least the opportunity to make the decision of whether they like the art form or not. Whereas without the access, you've probably lost 5.5 billion people who really have no idea what Indian classical dance is. Maybe it's not that much, but still, there's a huge number out there to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple our audiences probably pretty easily if we can find a way to get the art form and good renditions of the art form in front of larger audiences and expose more people to it. So I want to conclude by saying there's a line we have in one of our videos where it says, find the Indian in you that's also American. I consider myself an American artist. This was where I was born. I might have trained in an Indian art, but the issues that I speak to are often ones that affect me here, in my space. And the way I approach the art form is also from that lens. So when I say find the Indian you that's also American, it's not an inspirational statement in any means. It is very much, go try something new. You may not be connected to this field in any way, shape, or form, but if you were to try it or be exposed to it, maybe you would find something where you feel a connection to it, even though it is not your own because of where you were born. That's also why Navadhisha's tagline is be culture. That be culture is not a line we came up with in 20 seconds of, oh, what sounds catchy. It was a very long, year-long process of honing down what do we think Navadhisha does and what do we think our role is. So I encourage you to think about that. What does it mean to be culture? And go from there. Thank you. I hope this clarified some points. I wish I was there to kind of discuss further. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff to reiterate and question, but a big thank you to Apoorva for letting me say my piece and Navadhisha for bringing up this fantastic conference.